Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about how I made this. So we will just track our footage in After Effects, then we'll use the same footage in Blender and we'll make the simulation in Blender. So let's begin it. So I'm going to begin it with After Effects and let's track our footage. Okay, so now let's click new project. I'm going to import my footage. I will put the link to the same footage in the description down below if you're interested. I recorded it with my phone from my laptop, and now it's time to track the motion. So we'll just first see it. Okay, so now let me just click track camera. So under advanced, click detailed analysis, so it will track perfectly. Let's wait for this to finish. Okay, so now it's solving the camera, and now let's wait for these. Okay, so the average pixel, okay, so it's fine, and I think I'm gonna increase the scale. Okay, so here we go. We have so many trackers. Let me just select some of them and right click, create solid in camera. And now if you play it, as you can see, it's perfectly sticking into the keyboard, or you can say to the laptop. And now it's time to export this. So in order to export it, we have to have a script. I will put the link to the same script. You can install the script, then you will be able to export the tracking data, so you will be able to import it into Blender. So I'm just gonna click export composition data to JSON. I'm gonna choose a location, I will name it, and I will click save, and I will export it. Okay, it will be exported. So now it's time to open up Blender, and now Blender is open. Let me just hit A and delete everything. Go to file, import, and I have an add-on also. I will put the link to the same add-on in the description down below. You will be able to import the exported data from After Effects to Blender. It's super handy. And now let's move ahead to the file which we have exported from After Effects, and we will import it into Blender. As you can see, we have imported it, but we don't need this huge plan. I'm gonna delete it, and I'm gonna expand this window. I'm gonna hit A, select everything, and I'm gonna move it towards one, or you can say the first frame, and it will be perfect. So now it's time to set the frame rate. Maybe under output settings, go to frame rate and make it to 30 frame per second, because our footage was recorded in 30 frame per second. So I'm gonna go to camera view, and I'm gonna select the camera. I will move into camera settings. I will click background image, and I'm gonna expand it. I'm gonna hit add image, movie clip, and I'm gonna open the footage. So let's open it up. So I have opened it, and as you can see, we have, I'm gonna increase the opacity. So now if you play it, as you can see, it's also sticking into the keyboard or the laptop, and this is what we wanted. So now it's time to move this plan, move ahead. I'm gonna change to local, and I'm gonna move it into x-axis like that. I'm gonna align it with the laptop surface. So I'm just gonna move it, and I'm gonna scale it up like that. Okay, maybe I can rotate it on z-axis, or you can say y-axis, because we are actually in local. Okay, I'm gonna scale it on x-axis like that. I think it's fine. And now if you play it, it's sticking into the keyboard or the surface of the laptop. Okay, so let's change to cycles render, make it a GPU compute, and I'm gonna make it a denoise. So basically we are going to add a shadow catcher into the plan object. So go ahead to the object data and click shadow catcher for the plan, and maybe we can add holdout for now, because we don't want to see it. Okay, before doing anything, let me just shift ace and cursor to select it. I'm gonna add a cylinder. Okay, so let me just select both of them. Okay, it's an add-on which actually copy the rotation, location, and scale. So I'm gonna search for copy attribute menu. I'm gonna turn it on. So save the preferences, and if I select both of the object, first and the second one, and hit Control C, copy rotation, the other object will also rotate the same way as the first one, and this is very handy and super fast. So I'm gonna rotate the same way as it is. So I'm gonna move it towards x-axis, then I'm gonna move it towards y-axis. We are actually adding the uh, you can say the twig, or I don't know, the branch or the tree part, I'm gonna go to edit mode. I'm gonna scale it on z-axis like that, and I think I need to add some loop cuts. So I'm gonna hit Control R, and I will add some loop cuts. So I will just scroll the wheel to add so many of them. And I'm gonna select the top line by hitting Alt and right click, and I'm gonna turn on proportional editing, and I'm gonna scale it down like that. Okay, so that's fine. And now it's time to select some of them in the between of them. So I'm gonna select it and hit S, maybe scale it down. I'm gonna select this one also, and I'm gonna scale it down also like that. And maybe I can move on and just select all of those, and I'm gonna scale them down like that. Okay, so I'm gonna scale this up a little bit, and this one also maybe, so they have a smooth surface. I'm gonna share it auto smooth. And now if I just add a curve at the same position as the cylinder is, I'm going to scale it up. I'm gonna rotate it. I'm gonna select the cylinder, Control C, copy rotation, so they both have the same rotation. So I'm gonna select the curve, rotate it on y-axis at 90 degree. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty aligned to the cylinder. I'm gonna scale it up on z-axis so it's actually aligned it perfectly. I'm gonna move the curve accordingly. It's totally up to you how you want the animation to be, but I'm going to move it like that. And okay, so I'm just gonna move it this way. You can just move it wherever you want. I'm going to select the cylinder object, go to modifier. I will add a deform and a curve modifier. I'm gonna select this curve, and as you can see, it's already doing its job. You can now move it, you can animate it, so you have this perfect looking animation, and you can use the same technique for other project as well, which is pretty handy and super easy. So I'm gonna animate these on z-axis, so I'm just gonna move it towards down. I'm gonna select the plane. I'm gonna go, maybe I can scale it up, and I have turned on shadow catcher. Maybe I can go to material and I can add a holdout material for now to hide it in the viewport, so it's actually masking it out. So maybe I can just select the okay, so I'm gonna select both of them and align them in the center of the paid touchpad, and I'm gonna move them. So now it's time to animate this guy here. I'm gonna go to the first frame. Maybe I can go to frame number 13. I'm gonna move it down. I'm gonna hit I to add the location keyframe. I will move forward in the timeline, and I will move it up. Maybe I can move to 120, or maybe we can move it up on the z-axis like that. And now we can hit I to add a location keyframe, and now if we play it, it's perfectly doing its job, and this is what we wanted. So it's pretty handy, and you can use the same technique to make some cool arts animation as you see on Instagram mostly. I'm going to duplicate the same object. I will delete the animation from the other object, and I'm going to change the curve for the second object because I don't want it to be the same. So I'm going to select both of the new objects, and I'm going to move them towards somewhere. I think I'm going to change from local to global, and I'm going to move them like that. Maybe I can select the curve. I can move it towards that axis, and maybe that one. I can move it. So it's totally up to you how you want to feel it, how you want to make it. That's totally up to you. You can make the shape accordingly. And okay, so I think I have to also animate this one. So I'm gonna select the cylinder object, maybe both of them, and maybe I can move them into x-axis like that. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go for animating this. So I'm gonna move it down like that, and I'm gonna move to frame number 80, hit I for location, and I will move forward in the timeline, maybe to something like 160, and I'm gonna move it up like that. So it will just move after the first one. So I'm going to go to edit mode. I think I'm going to scale it on X and Y axis only. So it will be different from the first one. Okay, I'm going to save our file, because if you don't save your work, it might get messed up and you will lose it. You will have to do it everything from scratch. And I think we can just move on. Okay, so I'm gonna add a UV sphere. I'm gonna scale it up. I'm gonna move it on z axis. I'm gonna shade it out smooth, and I'm gonna scale it accordingly. Okay, so I'm gonna go to viewport visibility. I'm gonna make it a bound. Maybe I can select the downward cylinder object. I'm gonna go to the physics. I'm gonna add dynamic paint. I'm gonna add a canvas, add canvas, and I'm gonna change from paint to weight. And I'm gonna go under output. I'm gonna hit the plus icon, and I'm gonna select the sphere object out there. I'm gonna slightly move it down. I will add a dynamic paint. It's a brush, and I'm gonna add a brush, and I'm gonna make it proximity. Okay, so now what it does, it will add a wet paint. So I'm gonna bake it, and let's see what we get in wet paint. As you can see, if it's move up, it's actually animating the wet paint, and this is what we wanted. So maybe I can move down a little bit, like so we have some more wet paint when it moves up. So I'm gonna rebake it, and let's see what we get. I'm gonna go into wet paint and see. Okay, so I think that's fine. And now it's time to add some particles. So I'm gonna go to particle tab, hit plus, go to here, advanced, and I'm gonna move down. I will add a render, and the render is going to be an object, but for now I'm gonna just go to vertex group, select the wet paint group that we added. So what it does, when it moves up, it will grow here on it, and this is what we wanted. You can add any object instead of hairs, and it will just work out for you. So I have added some plants model. I will put the link to same models as well. You can use them. I'm going to select 3 of them and we'll move into a new collection, and this is a twig model that I will use to add it into the wood. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to change it to object, and I'm going to select this twig model of the branch model, and as you can see, it's actually doing its work. So I'm going to turn on object rotation. Maybe I can object rotate it, and I think okay, so maybe I can change from jittered to random, and I'm gonna decrease the number of them. I can scale them highly, and I can turn on the random scaleness, and I'm gonna play around with the random rotation, maybe because it does make it very cool. And I'm just gonna increase the number of the particle out there, and I'm gonna scale it up slightly so it may look perfect. As you can see, when it moves up, it do its job. And I'm gonna select the object, and I'm gonna increase the scale maybe, and decrease the number, and I think that's okay. So let me just add a material into it. So I'm gonna open up a new window here. I'm gonna go to shader editor. I'm gonna close it up, and I'm gonna hit new. I'm gonna add a new material. I have a PBR texture. I will put the link to the same texture in the description down below. I will add the texture into the wood, and it's actually a wood texture. So I'm gonna go to my texture folders, and I'm gonna add them. Okay, so here we go. We have those texture, and I'm gonna hit okay, so as you can see, it's already did its job, and you can also play around with the UVs of this object, but I think it's okay and it's fine. And maybe I can go to edit mode, and I'm gonna U and cube projection, and under UV editor I'm gonna hit A and scale it up so it's pretty aligned with it. And I'm gonna use the same material for the other object as well, and I'm gonna hit tab, U, cube projection, and that's it. Maybe I can scale it up, and I'm gonna go to camera view, and if it moves up, maybe I can play around with the particle. I'm gonna add a new particle. I'm gonna hit here, and I'm gonna select the same particle system for these one also, but I'm gonna remove it for now because we have to add a dynamic pen to it also. I'm gonna hit add canvas, and it's a weight, and I'm gonna hit the plus icon, and I'm gonna bake it, and now we can add a particle system into it. So go to particle system, hit plus, hit here, and select the same particle system. Go down and select the density and the length with the same wet paint. So as you can see, when they both moves up, they actually grow some leaves, and this is what we wanted. It's really handy and super easy to do. I'm gonna scale it down slightly, and I'm gonna move it maybe slightly. Okay, so I think it's perfect, and we can go for some other objects like the grass growing up on the keyboard and the track and the touchpad. and I'm gonna save it. Okay, so now it's time to add this asset into it, which is pretty handy. And I'm gonna go to solid view. I'm gonna select this plan. I'm gonna go to camera view. I'm gonna hit Shift D and duplicate it, and I'm gonna move it up. Maybe I can scale it on y-axis like that. I think I'm doing it in global. I'm gonna change it to local, then scale it on z-axis so it does its job perfectly. I'm gonna move it down. Maybe I can go to material view and okay, I'm gonna go to the first frame and I'm gonna rotate it on y-axis slightly to align it with the keyboard, and I'm gonna scale it down on z-axis and maybe on x-axis to align it with the laptop, and we're just going for something perfect so it's grown a perfect position on the keyboard of the laptop. And I'm gonna play it. As you can see, it's actually doing its job. Maybe I can change the material, or maybe I can remove the what you call it, the shadow catcher. Okay, so I'm gonna slightly move it down under the other plan. I'm gonna remove the same material from it. I'm also gonna turn off the shadow catcher for these object, and I'm gonna go to edit mode. I'm gonna add some subdivisions so we can add wet paint into it. Okay, so I think it's fine, and now I'm gonna go to object mode. I'm gonna hit Control S. It's time to move it slightly, and it's time to add another object. Maybe I can go to solid view and I can hide the other object. I'm gonna hit Shift A. Okay, so I think I'm gonna hit Shift A and I'm gonna add an icosphere. I'm gonna scale it up. I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna select both of them, copy rotation. Okay, so I'm gonna move it on z-axis, scale it up, maybe very huge. I'm gonna go under texture. I'm gonna make it a bound. I'm gonna move it on x-axis. Maybe I can scale it up like that, and it's fine, I think. And we can now animate these. But before doing it, let me just add physics, which is a dynamic paint. I'm gonna add it as a brush. I'm gonna hit add brush. Under paint, I'm gonna make proximity. I'm gonna select the other plan, dynamic paint. It's a canvas. Sorry, it's a canvas. Okay, so canvas, add canvas. I'm gonna make it from paint to weight, and I'm gonna go under output. I'm gonna hit plus, and we'll add this one to it. I'm gonna go to the first frame. I'm gonna hit I, and for the location, I'm gonna go to something like 120 or something. I'm gonna move it to frame number onto x-axis. I'm gonna hit I. So now it's time to bake the dynamic paint, and I'm gonna go to wet paint. As you can see, it's actually animated, and this is what we wanted. So I'm gonna go to object mode. Maybe I can just slightly move this plane towards x-axis, then again hit I, select the plane, and we are going to go for a particle system. Add a new here particle system. It's advanced. Under source, I'm gonna make it random. Under render, I'm gonna make it collection, and we'll use collection number 2, which actually contains 3 objects. I'm gonna select pick random, and I'm gonna go and choose our vertex groups. So now, as you can see, it's perfectly animated, and this is what we wanted. Okay, so I'm going to make the number to something like very low, because I'm going to scale it up pretty much, and I'm going to scale it to something like 160, and I will turn on the scale randomness all the way up, and I'm going to decrease the number of the particle there, and maybe I can increase the scale of these particles so it's actually pop up, and which looks perfect. I'm going to go to material view, and I'm going to click show emitter to hide these objects in rendering. Okay, so under, I'm gonna turn on the other object. So as you can see, it's perfectly doing its job. It's actually growing some grass on the surface of the keyboard or the laptop, and this is what we wanted. So I think we are done with the whole process, and we can now go for the render, because rendering is very important. So I think it's fine, and we can now add some rock, I think. Okay, so I have some rock model. I will put the link to the same model as well. You can also use them to add a little bit of those nature vibe into it. So I'm gonna add both of them into them. So I'm gonna select these objects, shift A selection to cursor, and I'm gonna move it towards x-axis like that. I'm gonna select the downward object, control C, copy rotation, and I'm going to select the rock object. It's here. I'm gonna rotate it on x-axis and 180 degree, so it's actually aligned with the downward plane, and this is what we wanted. So okay, so let me just rotate it, and I'm gonna go to camera view. I'm gonna move it on z-axis like that, and I'm going to move it slightly up so it's actually aligned with the surface of the laptop, and I'm gonna move it towards x-axis like that. And now I can add the other rock object also. I'm gonna hit shift A, cursor to select it, and I'm gonna select this one, shift A selection to cursor, so it's snap into there. I'm gonna select this object, and maybe I can control C, copy rotation, so both of them have the same kind of rotation. And I'm gonna move it slightly on y-axis. I'm gonna scale it down, and I think it's perfect. So if you play it, as you can see, it's actually sticking into the surface of the laptop, and this is what we wanted. I think it's now time for the HDRI. I'm not using any HDRI. I'm gonna use two simple lighting plan. Okay, so actually there is a huge object which is an icosphere. I'm gonna turn it off for viewport and rendering both of them. I'm also gonna turn off this one for both of them, and I'm gonna go to camera view. I'm gonna hit shift A, and I'm gonna go for film. I'm gonna make it transparent. Okay, so I'm gonna hit shift A. I'm gonna add a light, which is actually an area light. I'm gonna move it up. I'm gonna scale it up like that. Actually, I'm going to rotate it like that. I'm gonna scale it very big, and I'm gonna make it very high number of power. I'm gonna make it 5,000 maybe, and I think it's okay. I'm gonna move it slightly up. So I think I'm going to rotate it slightly, and I will just increase it to something like uh, maybe I can go for 10,000, but I think it's okay, and it's doing its job perfectly. I'm going to go to solid view. I'm going to duplicate the same area light to the other side of the scene, so I'm going to rotate it like that. I'm going to move it towards there, and it will actually make it perfect. It will actually act as a screen of the laptop, which is actually very bright, and I'm going to scale it accordingly to the screen of the laptop. So it's actually something like this, and I'm going to go to render view, and let's see how it looks like. And I think it's perfect, and it's super nice. Okay, so I think we can go for rendering, and it's the final stages of this tutorial, and I think we can just see how it feels like in render view. Okay, so I'm gonna go to solid view. I'm gonna go to compositing. Okay, here is the render layer. I'm gonna add a movie clip, search for a movie clip. I'm gonna add it to here, and I'm gonna select the same footage. I'm gonna search for alpha over node. I'm gonna connect both of them like that, and I'm going to add a viewer node. So shift A, viewer node, and add a viewer node. Connect the image with the image like that. And now, as you can see, nothing's happened because we actually not rendered any image. So under rendering, I'm gonna make the rendering sample to 50, so it's render very faster. So let's check it out. Okay, so it's actually rendering, and let's see what we get in the final result. Okay, so as you can see, we actually get this kind of result, and I think we are done with this. And maybe we can move the rock slightly up, so they actually cast some shadows. I'm gonna go to material of the big plan. I'm gonna remove the material from the big plan, so it's actually used as a shadow catcher, not a holdout material. So maybe I can move this slightly, and now it will have a perfect shadows, everywhere, and this is what we wanted. So guys, if you want to get the same content like that, you can hit the subscribe button. You can like this video, share this with your artist friend, and maybe you can just do a comment. If you do have any question, I will make sure to answer any question. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned to the next one.